And so Mosab, in your book, Son of Hamas, you discussed that part of the reason you defected from Hamas was in large part due to this ideology of murder and murder as a political weapon and as a tool. And to that end, a few weeks ago, you were on Piers Morgan Uncensored, where you said that war is the only way to, quote, war is the only way to move toward peace between the Israeli government and the Palestinian people. And so to that end, how do we, as Americans or as supporters of Israel, advocate for war, knowing that that might and will likely only bring more loss?
Many people are mistaken if they think you can achieve peace all the time through dialogue. When dialogue, negotiations, reason, rationality come to a dead end, then there is nothing left but the use of force. For 17 years, Israel extended its hand to Hamas, the international community, especially the United States, encouraging Hamas to drop their idea of annihilating the state of Israel. It was the condition that you cannot be part of the peace process without dropping your idea to annihilate a race. And Hamas could not do that, to accept Israel's right to exist. Without going back through the history of Hamas and how many crimes they have committed since their existence, 35 years in the making, building momentum. And on October 7th, they committed a genocide. This is a very important thing to understand. First of all, that Hamas nature is not a national organization. It's only using a national cause called the Palestinian cause, and a very broad term. Keep that in mind. Second, they commit a genocide, not a terrorist attack. Don't be mistaken. Define a genocide. Look into the Hamas own media documenting their attacks and see what they did to humanity. The darkness, the embodiment of evil. Then it did not stop there. They escaped after their crime, and they took an entire society, the Gazan people, as human shields. So Hamas' first crime was committing a genocide against the race. Then they took human shields. Children, women, building bunkers, tunnels under hospitals, schools, using schools, mosques as missile launching pads. This is their second crime. The third crime against humanity. They kidnapped infants, children, women, elders, took them hostages with a demand to release mass murderers. You saw the infants, you saw the children. How can anyone with consciousness still believe that this is a political issue? Anyone who sees things for what they are, he say or she say no to this. You are swapping or exchanging infants, babies, with monsters who have blood on their hand, spending 100 years supposed to be in prison. They want these terrorists, those savages, back on the street. This is why Hamas took hundreds of hostages. This is their third crime. Multiple crimes against humanity done simultaneously by the same savage group, and we're still debating whether they are okay or not okay. So Israel was left with no other choice but to use force. And force is the last resort. Philosophers in the East and in the West enlightened avatars validated the use of force when all other means fall. And in this case, in Hamas' case, there was no way around it but to use the force. There are civilian casualties, but their blood is on the hands of Hamas and on the hands of Hamas alone. Because Israel warned the civilians of Gaza to evacuate. It gave them 21 days to escape, but they still insist on staying to give Hamas cover. You know why? Because unfortunately, many Gazans support Hamas and many Gazans voted for Hamas. And the majority of Gazans hated Israel. And many choose to be silent. And a majority of the Arab world, not only the Gazans, failed to condemn Hamas and say this does not represent the Arab people. They failed to condemn Hamas. This is their biggest mistake. And when such a society fail their moral responsibility, at least, I don't want to say to eradicate Hamas, but at least morally, to take a moral responsibility and say, we are different. This does not represent our religion, our culture. But instead, they gave Hamas cover and they failed to condemn Hamas. This is their problem. So Israel is left with no other choice but to defend itself. And all the victims of Gaza that you see, remember my words, they are war victims. Very different type of victims than October 7 victims. October 7 victims, they were victims of a genocide. This is the highest crime can be committed, a genocide, where you systematically kill people, move from door to door, annihilating everything in your way. This is what Hamas did, indiscriminately. What's happening in Gaza, Israel called the people, say evacuate this building because we have a tunnel under. Then Hamas go with their propaganda using pictures and videos from Syria to say, look what Israel is doing to us, while they are the ones hijacking an entire society using Palestinians as human shields. This is the devil in action. So, of course, there is no other way but the use of force. And with this, I conclude. The United States of America, after the savage attack against Pearl Harbor, where 400 Japanese suicide airplanes hit the harbor, the United States immediately developed the dirty bomb. And they wiped out Hiroshima and Nagasaki 4 years exactly after this attack. When they did that, the war ended. It was the end of World War II. So sometimes, some of us, could be one of us, would have to take the responsibility to drop a dirty bomb somewhere in order to stop the war from spreading. Because when a majority of people agree on violence, validate violence, justify genocide, and think it's a point of view to become a Nazi, in this day, it all begins with killing Jews. This is what happened last century. And Nazism, many thought of it as a point of view. And now history is repeating itself. And even in the middle of our educational institutions, we've been invaded by Hamas ideology, by the name of Palestine and by the name of revolution. Who cares? Anti-Semitism is Nazism, and it's rejected. It should be rejected on this campus, should be rejected everywhere in the United States. The United States should be the last country that allow this type of mentality to express itself, because Nazism is not a point of view. It is not. And we will never validate savages. So basically, Israel had no other choice but to use the force. And war is ugly. In war, people die. This is why Hamas should have not started this war from the beginning. They dragged all of us into this situation. But what I know for sure, that Israel will end this war. Whatever it takes, we have to eradicate them. What is the alternative to Israel? Let's ask ourselves this question. What's the alternative? Israel is not a perfect country. It's just another establishment. It has its own mistakes. There is no such a thing as a perfect system. But the alternative to Israel is Hamas savages or other groups that they have not proven to be accountable, to be responsible, to lead. So in this case, I personally choose Israel. With whatever imperfection there. Because if the savages win, all of us are going to pay the price. If Hamas is not eradicated, and all these attempts, including this vote happening here, it's all connected. They are trying to delegitimize the state of Israel. Pay attention. Who initiated this poll or this vote? They have the sick intention to delegitimize the only respectful state in an ocean of darkness. They want to destroy this model. So the darkness takes over the entire region. But then it will spread to Europe. And then it will spread around the globe. They are already moving. Look what's happening in Europe. It's our responsibility to counter them, not to let them succeed. Because if Israel does not have the necessary cover, political cover, that we are giving them right now in their war against savages. And if Hamas is not eradicated completely in Gaza, we will open the gates of hell everywhere. Because we will encourage many other terrorist groups, not only terrorist groups, could be also criminal groups in Mexico, cartel, drug groups. All of them would look and see that few thousands of terrorists were able to bring a democracy, an entire system, a country, a nation with all their institutions, all the way to their knees. And how many hate groups out there that would love to sabotage so many democracies and so many systems? So do we want to let Hamas win in Gaza and then open the gates of hell? Or instead of all these attempts to delegitimize the state of Israel, we say no. At least it's a democratic system. It's not perfect. Yes, they make mistakes. There is corruption, whatever it is. It's just another country. But at least it believes in dialogue. It's accountable. It has elections. And most importantly, we can negotiate with them. We can talk to them. We can reason with them. We can pressure them. But Hamas, nobody can. So with that said, let them conspire. This is what they are doing in the dark rooms, conspiring, bringing such a vote to a respectful university. It's a wicked act. It should have not been adapted by the university from the first place. But this is how they creep, slowly. So with that said, keep in mind, Israel is not our enemy in this case. The savages are. And all the forces trying to give them a lifeline, we're not going to allow this to happen. And I hope that they fail, and I hope that the savages will be eradicated. Thank you very much, and God bless.